Progress.
Hello. Of course,
Hello.
every time every single time my camera stops and then my whole view changes.
Yeah.
Every single time. So,
So-
but I'm going to hopefully by the next class, I'll have a new camera and it won't mess up. So
Also,
that's
Megan,
good.
check and see what your internet speed is at home
Yeah.
and see if we can't upgrade that too to
Yeah.
a higher plan.
Yeah. Yeah. I will check that out. I will definitely check that out. Okay. So today's bingo day, everyone. I'm going to share the link in chat. Let me get it to Discord. I don't even know where I am today.
I'm
That's great.
predictable.
It's Thursday, day 4. And so you need to click on the link, not on the actual embed. That doesn't work. So just click on the link that I just posted. And the way we play bingo.
We just lost her, didn't we?
Yeah. The connection's a little iffy.
How we play bingo is as I'm teaching, there will be different phrases that I use that are actually on the bingo cards. You will fill out your bingo card. Megan's playing this game too, so you can't cheat. And we will announce a winner. And you must be present to win. That's the most important thing for everybody to understand is you have to be here. Like, you got to be present to win the bingo tournament with it as well. So it's just standard bingo. You go automatically generate a card, you build your bingo card, and then at the end, she takes all the people that have filled out their bingo cards, goes into a randomizer, like this big randomizer tumbler thing like shining stones. It's pretty cool. And then we pull one out, and that person is the big winner. But you have to be here. You have to be.
Yes. And I don't know if I'm sorry, my internet's so janky. You win 1 year subscription to the on-demand catalog.
What?
Yes.
1 year class we have?
Yes, for every single class that we offer an on-demand.
That's
and 1 year
crazy.
cyber range.
Who came up with that?
We decided it in a back room really quietly so that
when we were smoking opium.
Those dang opium things.
Opium den days.
Those damn opium dens. I was going to say a peyote tent, but that would have
that
was different decisions were made there.
I think I'm done with opium. I think I'm going with peyote tent because that fits with the theme of Black Hills Information Security.
Right. All right. Well, we are right at the top of the hour, so welcome in everybody. Sorry, my internet's crap, but I will be around. Don't forget to DM me your completed bingo card, as John says the different words. And I think that's about it. All right. We'll see you on the backside.
All right, let's get rolling, everybody. All right, so thank you so much for coming to the last day of this class. And once again, just so you all know, it is actually recorded. So if you have to step away for family, a job, friends, must be nice to have friends, then you absolutely can come back and you can review the session at your leisure. So we try to make that as accessible as we possibly can for people. By the way, I just want to call out that we have the shirt of the day is the Malware Finds a Way shirt. All right. We sell these shirts on the Spearfish General Store. If you did the package for the kind of Kickstarter style package, you absolutely can get this shirt. It's based on Jurassic Park, Life Finds a Way. I think this shirt is cooler. I get stopped and asked about it all the time. So that's the shirt of the day. All right, so let's get rolling. So whenever we closed out the session yesterday, we were doing AI Hunter, which is a wrapper for Rita. And we got into a series of questions that need to be answered that we can answer within the AC Hunter. So the Asyncrat data set, let's go ahead and let's open that one up. It asks a question, and that question is, what is the connection interval for 192.168.100.136, and what is the dispersion? So let's go ahead and let's open up that data set right here. And if we look at it, boy, that's a really beautiful beacon. That's some good beaconing right there. I like that beacon. A couple of things about it. Let's look at this connections over time. That is a really flat histogram. Super flat histogram is a good, strong indication of a beacon. Now, these are the number of connections per hour. This is helpful if you're dealing with a beacon that is randomizing its interval. Let's say it's randomizing anywhere between 30 to 40% on a 10-second interval. That's great, randomizes it. Far more difficult to detect in those particular situations. That's awesome. However, if we pull back and we look at the number of connections per hour, you're actually going to see where that levels out. So very much not a human doing human things. We got the connection dispersion. They're trying to do a little bit of randomness. They're setting the pivot point at 7 seconds, and then they're basically setting a percentage off of the 7-second node for randomization and the percentages. So a little bit of randomization in the connection interval, but look at the data dispersion, high concentration. Almost every single one of the connections, 13,260 of them, were the exact same data size. That's pretty good indication that we've got non-human beaconing behavior. The other thing that's nice to know about this is I'm relatively certain this backdoor has not been activated. Why is that important? Why does anybody care? The reason why that's important is if you have a backdoor that is discovered on a system and you see a data frequency like this, it means the malware was triggered. It was just phoning home. It was going mom, 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 mom. There was no active communication, because if there was, you would see a variation in the data dispersion where you would see different packets of different sizes going back and forth. You would still see a very strong mode. You'd see a big spike at the continuing beacon, but you would see other data sizes. And with that, we could also make a determination of how much data was exfiltrated as well. So pretty cool little data set there with asyncrat. The next one is the ZenRat or ZenoRat. RAT, in case you don't know, stands for a remote access Trojan. So we're going to go to ZenoRat, and we're going to look at this backdoor, which gives us a different view. What do we got? 51.75, 5175. Let's go to that one. Now, this one's bouncing off of a Microsoft CDN. Way different. Way different. Now, the big thing about this is it's been up and alive for 48 hours. It has a really long duration that needs to be investigated. And look at the number of connections. 4. A different style of backdoor. Instead of it beaconing back and forth thousands of times, it did 4 sessions. 4 full TCP/IP sessions. And that's it. That's all it did right there. So different style of backdoor, different look, to kind of like see how these things are different is important. For the DNS-Cat2 data set, if we go to that one, let me open that up over here. DNS-Cat2, 1-rx.com. If we look at this one, this has some different data. Because it's a DNS backdoor, it's not going to give us the exact like threat modifier of like beaconings and things like that. It's going to show us something different. If we look at this, we have the number of subdomains that were used. You can see that there's something like 62,000, close to 62,500 subdomains for r-1x.com. That's strange. Like you wouldn't see that in Amazon. You wouldn't see that in Google. So what do we mean by a subdomain? If I go to www.google.com, domain is google.com, the subdomain is www. I can go to mail, I can go to maps and all these other things. So if we're looking at this, this one little domain has over 62,000 subdomains. And look at all of those fully qualified domain names. Look at that. Now what's going on? Why does it look like that on the screen? Well, the reason why it looks like that and the reason why it works that way is if we were just to use www.r-1x.com, then it wouldn't work as a C2 channel. And the reason it wouldn't work as a C2 channel is because the cached answers on the DNS server. As soon as it resolved that IP address the first time, there would be a cache timeout on how long it would keep the www entry, and it wouldn't work as a reliable C2 channel over a period of time because we want lots of communication. By randomizing the fully qualified domain name, it causes a full established connection all the way back to the DNS server. So it does a lookup for every randomized fully qualified domain name, so we can transfer text records back and forth as the C2 channel. So that is how a DNS command and control channel works. The next one, we've got what time data set. Now this one's fun. This one goes into why attackers name their backdoors and they come up with creative domain names. So at BHIS, we're always trying to find domains that we can acquire and then use those domains as our C2 server. So in this particular situation, the reason why this is important is this looks like it's a time sync server because that's what the name says, right? We want to blend in with what people would look at and be like, oh yeah, that's totally normal. That's going to Microsoft. Firestack 2 dataset, we're looking at MIME types. Now, when we're talking about MIME types, that is how you can identify a file or a data set that is being transferred. And what happens with C2 servers is they set up and build their header, but the actual data has a MIME mismatch. So you can see that the data type, it says it's not been correct, all right? We've had an incorrect MIME mismatch over 2,860 times. That's another indication that something says it's one thing, but it's actually something else entirely. Also, we have this very unique user agent string in this organization. So the only system that's using this user agent string, and it's trying to use a user agent string that kind of blends in, but it doesn't match perfectly. Now, some may ask, what is a user agent string? A user agent string is a string where a web client identifies itself to a web server. And it'll say, hi, I'm a Microsoft browser. These are the different technologies that I support. This is the type of encryption that I support. So the server can actually provide the data in a way that that client needs it. All right, so that is the lab that we closed with yesterday using Rita and AC Hunter. So that's kind of cool. The network threat hunting, that's how we do network threat hunting when we can't view the data because we're using encryption. We're going to look at the behavioral analytics of that connection profile to make a determination as to whether or not something is human. Then we can do additional modifiers on that to make a determination as to whether or not it is evil. All right. Let's keep rolling. So user entity behavioral analytics, and I probably just need to change this entire section and just call it AI. A little bit of background. If you went back even 4 years ago and you were calling your product AI, like we used to have AI Hunter, we still own the trademark for that. We're going to use it again for our cloud service. People would laugh at you. Unless you could specifically answer how you were using AI in your product, people just weren't all that interested. They thought it was just a buzzword. That all changed last year around October, November, right? AI started taking off. Now it's absolutely necessary. So in the world of security event log management, in that world, people weren't using the word AI all that often. Then it all changed. So before that, we used to call it user entity behavioral analytics, and I'll just change this to like AI log analysis in the future. And the reason why this is important, and it's incredibly important, by the way, is that logs are a flat out train wreck. They're just bad. There's no such thing as a you've been hacked log on a Windows system. It's not like, oh, we got event ID 666. Satan's on our network. Satan. All right. So we don't have anything like that on our network or our logs. So what do? Well, it actually requires us to fix the lighting that I just messed up on this whole thing. So my AV team doesn't freak out at me. It requires us to actually have a little bit of better understanding and correlate and fuse logs from multiple different places. This is very similar to the AI section that we taught and we talked about earlier in this course as well. And your traditional Windows logs, they suck. Here, let me show you. I'll show you this in a little bit more detail. So I just started up my meta. No, I did not. Let me kick up the lab and I'll show you why Windows logs suck. They're bad. They're really not good. They're bad, Chamo. they don't really, I don't know. I talk about this in some of my classes, and I haven't talked about it in a while. I think there was a lot of cocaine that was being used in the Microsoft campus for a long time. And yeah, the Windows logs are just very, very bad. And I'll show that here in a second once the system gets started up. So if you take the event logs and you take a lot of organizations, like what percentage of detects of actual attacks genuinely come from logs? I would argue it's less than 5%. Just from logs alone. I would say a huge percentage comes from EDR. Another big percentage would come from firewalls and things of that nature. But just standard built-in Windows event logs, very little. Very, very little. Now, Linux logs are a little better. They are. They are a little better, maybe a lot better, but you still don't have good logging on the command line on a Linux system. You have your bash history, so that's nice. And you can do some modifications to your bash history to enable timestamping on your Linux logs, which is equally nice as well. There's just some options that you can work with, but still not all that great. Now, when we're looking at logs, it wasn't until relatively recently, about 6-7 years ago, that a bunch of security professionals got together and they're like, wait a minute, if an attacker's on a system and they're living off the land and the logs suck, what are the other indicators of compromise that we would see on a Windows environment? And that was the question a bunch of fine folks in Japan asked at JPSER. This guy's there, that's better. And they asked this question and they started up a project to start running a bunch of LOL binaries or living off the land binaries and recording what registry key entries, prefetch files, and logs were generated when that tool that Microsoft created was used. So if you look over here, you can see WinRM, you can see PSExec, and they started creating a better taxonomy of what we can expect to see whenever these tools are used in attacks and lateral movement. That's great. We're expanding that aperture. Instead of just looking at the event logs, we're looking at other indications of what's going on. So why UEBA or AI? Well, to be honest with you, if you just try to look at anything in a network with one specific log, you don't actually get the story. So let's start this with a question. You can kind of work this out at home, you can type it in, whatever it is you want to do. So when you're looking at logs and you're doing analysis, if I sit down at my computer, get in the morning, get my cup of coffee, coffee. And then I turn on my computer. Where are the event logs for that occurrence? Turning on my computer, logging in, drinking coffee. Like, where would those event logs be? So kind of think this through. Some people may ask me, but John, what about low sodium V8? I don't have any low sodium V8 here at the studio. It's all at home. And that's a tragedy. And we got to work on that low sodium V8 sponsorship that we keep trying to get. But at any rate, you would find logs on the workstation. You would find logs on the domain controller, of course. You would also find logs on the network device. On your switch, there's something called a CAM table, the content addressable memory table, that records your IP address and your MAC address when your system starts up. You would have logs at the edge of the network. You would have logs at your proxy for web traffic. You would have logs that would show up in all of these different places. And in order to completely tell the story of John drinking coffee at work, you might need some cameras, which is a little creepy. You know, it's a damn shame what's happening to flock cameras. Damn shame. Anyway, going back to this, you would have multiple logs that tell that story, that would tell that narrative of me turning on my computer system. And security attacks are very much the same thing. Whenever a hacker breaks in, you're going to have to correlate and fuse logs from VPN servers, firewall servers, egress like web proxy servers, domain controllers, and endpoints, right? So we'd have to look at a number of different logs to tell the story. So if you have an internal password spray, you would have one ID that's accessing multiple different systems. There would be multiple different logs that you would have to pull together to explain what's going on. Now, there's some great tools that visualize this, right? Like one of the free tools is Logon Tracer. Outstanding little tool, and it can show me how I have this red system, this SVC white noise system, and how that system is logged into, or that account rather, is logged into all of these other diamonds. They're like diamonds in the sky, right? You gotta shine bright like a diamond, right? So we have all of these other computers that are being logged into by this account. And that is a good visualization of what actually is happening. And unfortunately, looking at a single event log doesn't tell that narrative. It doesn't tell that story. So if you're working in UEBA, if you're working in AI and log analysis, a lot of these tools can do that data visualization for you. Now, we're going to get a little weird here. It's going to make people a little bit uncomfortable. That's what we're all about here in this class. We want to get people out of their comfort zone. We're going to push you. We're going to push you a lot in this class. We're going to push you a lot in all of my classes. And here's one of the things. False positives aren't a thing. I know that that's kind of a bit harsh. Stick with me. False positives aren't really a thing. They're detection tuning opportunities. A lot of the event log analysis tools, they have alerts that are generated and rules that generate those alerts, and they tend to be really generic. And if you have a rule that's firing off again and again and again and again and again and again, the default reaction when you look at it through the lens of it being a false positive is, well, let's just delete that rule. Problem solved. Okay. The problem is that rule did a specific thing. See, if we go back to SVC white noise, if we have an account that's logging into multiple systems every single day and it's generating lots of alerts, you don't want to go through and delete that rule, but rather you want to look at it and create a little bit of tuning for it. If that account is a legitimate service that does that, then you want to create a specific rule that system is allowed to do that thing in this time from certain IP addresses. If it's an attack, then you want to deal with it properly. You do not want to completely delete your rules because they're generating lots and lots of alerts. This gets into one of those things where as I get older and I lose my hair and getting more and more like white hairs and everything, as I'm rolling towards like well into middle age at this particular point in my life, I have people like, yeah, our source system, man, it's got like 100 rules that are just generating lots of alerts. And I think we need to throw our tool away and get another tool that has fewer false positives. Like 100? Like literally when I got started, back in my day when I was working in Shelbyville, I was wearing an onion on my belt, which was a fashion at the time. And I would have to use Perl to create all these different filtering rules for all the different logs that I was receiving to my syslog server. We would have to spend days going through creating all kinds of customized rules in Perl to filter logs. So if you have a few hundred alerts that are firing and they're noisy, tune them. That is literally our job. That's what we're supposed to do. Got to change that mindset. So UEBA or AI, how does it work? Now, there's a couple of different ways that AI can do this. Some of them are really computationally easy. This is one of them. It's just a simple stacking algorithm, right? Let's say you log into a computer system, you get a +1. You log out, you get a -1. It's that easy. I'm an administrator. I log into a computer and I log into 4 or 5 other systems. I get like a +6, right? Perfectly normal. But now let's say a system is compromised. Let's say somebody comes in, pops my box, and immediately starts spraying with Bloodhound and just starts logging into thousands of computer systems. Yeah, that stacking algorithm should say, that workstation is now logged into 2,000 computer systems. We might want to look into that. That might be something that needs to be investigated. Maybe. All right. Hold on. I just came up with a thing. We're back. All right. So another thing that you can do with AI is AI can learn what is normal for each user in an environment. This goes to like inference and training models and identifying different patterns of behavior for specific users. This is why a lot of the AI algorithms for SIM need a certain amount of data as training data so it can learn and baseline what is normal for that particular user. How do I describe this? Imagine mathematically a valley, right? And as a user works, the things that happen the most are at the bottom of the valley. Gravity pulls you down to the bottom of the valley. So I log into my computer, I check Exchange. That happens all the time. That's going to be normal, right? That's going to be an easy path for vector vectoring to work. It's something that happens. It's what I do. It's walking downhill. From a mathematical perspective, those particular things that happen have weight and pulls them down. So the more I do things that I do every single day, the more I'm creating more weight for those particular activities and what I am doing. It happens 1,000 times over the course of a year, has a lot of weight. John just keeps going down the path, down the path. And it's very similar to paths, like somebody hiking through the woods on a path. Have that path. It's well walked. You see it again and again and again. What AI does is mathematically take the events that normally occurs, they create weight, and it's an easy value for the vector to basically track down towards. The more it happens, the more weight pulls it down. Water flows down, data flows down, AI is constantly trying to go down. Now, some guy shows up and tries to roller skate uphill, right? All of a sudden, the John Strand account is logging into thousands of systems, or I'm pulling 3 gigs of data. That's not down. That's not what John does. That's not normal John traffic. And when the AI is analyzing it, that's going uphill. Because that's odd, because it's weird and it doesn't have gravity and it doesn't have weight, it's now uphill. At that particular point, AI generates an alert. Does that make sense to people? I'm trying to come up with analogies on, how vectoring works and AI works and all of those different things. And also I threw a Blade reference in there. I don't know if anyone got that, but hopefully it helps kind of understand what's going on. But we're looking for those anomalies. We're looking for those weird things that we normally do not see in an environment. All right, now let's move into let's do a quick lab. We did a lab with Deep Blue CLI, but now let's do a lab where we actually leverage Deep Blue CLI. Actually, no, we're just going to go through the section, then we'll do the lab. I think we should do it that way. We'll have a happy little lab. Actually, no, we're going to do a lab. Screw it. I can't even keep myself straight today. We're going to do a lab. We're going to do it live. Let's do it live. How does that sound? Let's get to it. All right. So we are going to do the enterprise log analysis lab. Here we go. If I can find it, I've got to get my eyes fixed. I swear. Domain log review right here, domain log review. So this is the lab that we are going to do. We're going to use Deep Blue CLI and we are going to, that's not what I wanted. We're going to use Deep Blue CLI to do quick analysis on an enterprise attack. And then we're going to actually look at the logs associated with that attack. Very quick lab. We've already run Deep Blue CLI. We've got an idea on how that works. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to run Deep Blue against the enterprise DC SecLogs 2. And then it's going to generate, hey, there's a password spray going on here. You need to investigate that. And then we're going to jump into the actual event logs associated with that attack so we can see what those logs look like. And you can see how one log doesn't tell the story. We need multiple logs to tell that story. We're going to set the timer at 20 minutes, Daryl. We're going to set it at 20 minutes and then I'll do the walkthrough and then we'll get into more logs and then we're going to get into a longer lab using Sysmon. Let's get rolling.
legend sleeping under library echoes in the log, but nobody's wary. Sing to the cloud, drift through the stream, one click deeper into the machine. Harvesting tokens like midnight confessions. Every credential's a digital obsession. Bye, 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 bye. You're taking my secrets. Hidden your secret. Taking my secret. Taking my secret. Taking my secrets. Pack it, I can feel you steal it. MacOS heartbeat under neon light. I see your signature, but not in plain sight. You're ghosting my drive tonight. Keychain crack, cookies bleed in the dark. Launch demon sparks from a silent remark. Malware's a melody looping the crime. Persistence is rhythm, execution's time. From Ventura to Sonoma, it's all the same. Stealing auto-filled dreams, hiding the name. Steal a log, sing and send a C2, and I'm dancing while the beacon goes blue. Bye, 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 bye. You're taking my secret. You're taking my secret. You're taking my secret.
just sitting here enjoying the tunes. All right, so let's go through this lab real quick. So I've got my Meta CTF system set up and ready to go. We're going to connect via browser because that's the way we connect these days. So I'm kind of bummed. There's no such thing as like an open source UEBA or open source AI tool that you can use. Now, some people bring up from time to time, what's that? And what's that is a really, really good little EDR program. I have nothing against it at all. The only issue is it's a pretty heavy install. Requires Elastic, and we're giving away full-time people running in these labs, and that crap costs money. Excuse me. So we really need to find something that works a little bit more lightweight. And that's what we have here. All right, so I am going to go ahead and run Deep Blue CLI against the event logs associated with the password spray. And I messed that up. Let's go ahead. Man, I don't know why you guys listen to a guy that can't copy and paste. All right, so we're going to copy that. And we're going to paste that in like so. And it's going to come back and it's going to give us some indications of a compromise. Specifically, we're going to see like 240 failed login attempts. Like, look at that. That's a lot of failed login attempts. So as a security researcher, if you get an alert, and by the way, Deep Blue CLI is not a full AI tool, but AI tools do what Deep Blue CLI does, right? So we want to investigate those logs to figure out exactly what is going on. So I'm going to open up those event logs. We're going to go ahead and go to the C drive, and then I'm going to go to Intro Labs, and then Deep Blue CLI, Master. And we're going to go int logs, and then I need to load the right logs. This is always something that's a little rough for me. So I need the DC2 sec logs right here, domain password spray. That's the app. That's DC1, DC2 sec logs, domain password spray. So I'm going to double click on those. Not one click, not 3 clicks. Double click, 2 clicks to open that. And then the event logs are going to open. It takes a few moments, and it's kind of a weird thing with Event Viewer. Whenever it does, in fact, finally open up, it doesn't take me directly to the event logs that I'm interested in. I have to actually scroll down on the left-hand side to view those event logs for us. Now, that's just a weird thing about Windows Event Viewer. Taking a little while to start up. No big whoop. And expanding. Let's just see if it just gave up completely. No, it did not, and that's good. And then over here, if I zoom in, you can see that we have the DC2 sec logs, right? So we want to look at DC2 sec logs, and then I'm going to sort by event ID here. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and we get a whole bunch of invalid login attempts. I got to go the other way. A whole bunch of invalid login attempts on this system. Right here, we have all these credential access. So we have a failed login attempt from this exact same workstation against tons of user accounts. Rosalie, we have Chester, because, this is the 40s. Of course, wasn't Chester the name of the lead singer for Linkin Park? Not exactly sure. We have Janice, we have Jill, we have Wallace, we have Carrie, Essie, Vanessa, Regina, Jen, Walter, Enrique, Paul. So all of these are failed login attempts from that exact same workstation. And that workstation right there, that particular workstation needs to get shut down. And we need to kick off a full investigation, folks. That's what we need to do. So that is the event log analysis enterprise, like talking about how we can use that AI type analysis of looking at multiple logs in aggregate to make a determination. And once again, would you use Deep Blue CLI as your log analysis tool? No, that would be crazy. However, you do use it in triage, you do use it tactically, and it's a great stand-in for looking at logs in kind of the same vein of artificial intelligence. But now we're going to dive a little bit more into some logs. So we have Logon Tracer. If you're looking at Active Directory logs, these are the predominant logs that you need to log to gather a lot of the information we discussed. Successful logon failure, Kerberos authentication, service ticket, NTLM authentication, and assign special privileges. There are other logs, but these are the core ones that you want to keep as much as possible. And that's what we just saw in the event logs in that enterprise log analysis section. It's now time for EDR. As I say, yay, EDR, yay. All right, so what is EDR? When we're looking at EDR, it's endpoint detection and response. And that actually can mean a lot of things. It seems to be congealing on a much better description. It used to be just like Carbon Black would be a flight recorder of what happened on your computer. And then you'd have to couple it with an actual like enterprise antivirus as well. But most EDRs that exist today are ones that can do prevention and they can do a recording of what's actually happening on your environment. So it's really cool. We can tie this into store, and then you get into like vendors that just get ridiculous and they're like, what if we call it XDR? Extended detection and response. It's like, oh dear God, Palo Alto. Everyone's got to come up with a new phrase for things to sell you something that's a little bit different, to try to make sure that their tool is the only one in the market that does that thing. It's annoying. That's what they do. I'm looking at you, Palo Alto. Even though they had a Keanu Reeves commercial at RSA a couple of years ago that was straight fire. Keanu Reeves, as near as I could tell, was a janitor, and he was being attacked by a bunch of cyber attackers, and he was fighting them off by being Keanu Reeves, which I'm down for it. Give that man an Oscar for a Lifetime Achievement Award. Whoa. All right. So there's a lot of vendors out there, a ton actually. And one of the problems with a lot of these vendors is they don't exist anymore, which is very wild to me. Like Cylance was a vendor that was just crazy. They were everywhere. And then kind of things went sideways for them. You got Palo Alto Cortex, you got Carbon Black, which has been acquired and reacquired a number of different times. Same thing with Cylance. Fun fact, Cylance was sold to BlackBerry. Does anybody know what Cylance was sold to BlackBerry for? If anybody can look that up on the Discord server. See if anybody knows. They were sold. No. The first time they were sold to BlackBerry for $1.4 billion. That's a lot of squishy. And then BlackBerry, doing what BlackBerry does, which is lose money, they decided that what we need to do is sell Cylance, and they spun it off to, oh God, who did they sell? They sold it off to like an MSSP. I can't remember which one they sold it to for only 140 million. Do you guys know what the difference is between a billion and a million? A billion. Remember, a billion is 1,000 million. It's not like there's slight differences. Like you're a millionaire and a billionaire. It's like a millionaire is closer to being a hobo than you are to being a billionaire, right? So they sold it to Arctic Wolf. Yeah, $160 million. And that's the difference between the car doors that do this or this, but not this, like a chump. All right. So this stuff is constantly moving around. There's a lot of money that's dropping into it, and it's very, very, very expensive. And you're going to spend money on these products. There are some open source, like I said, Wazaa is a good one. It's not super great. I wouldn't run it if you were like an investment firm, or I would run it if you really have a tight budget. It would absolutely be great. I see it in universities and things like that. But if you're dealing with nation state level adversaries, you're going to want to plus up your game just a little bit. You also have vendors, and vendors lie. It is very, 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 very common. I know this sounds weird, for vendors to lie to you. I used to, when I was a much younger man, I would go to these different vendor showcases at RSA and Black Hat and just raise all kinds of hell with vendors. It was kind of cathartic, and it was honestly kind of fun. My favorite story, I have a couple of stories. One I haven't told here for a long time. This is special for like Jesse and Roswell and the people that have been in this class for a long time and are helping out on our Discord server. Completely new story that you may not remember. Years ago at DerbyCon, I think it was like DerbyCon 1 or 2, they put us in the same room as Symantec. Black Hills Information Security. And I can't remember what Symantec was selling. It was something like SEP version 12. And there was a sales guy that was very loudly saying, is like, Symantec SEP 12 is not bypassable by any security people. None of these pen testers in here have the skills or the cojones or whatever. He was being fairly vulgar about, they can't bypass our product. And I took that personally. So what we did is we quickly created a video where we bypassed that product and we walked through how we bypassed that product and we put it on a continuous loop on like a monster screen by our booth. We actually went and bought one, and we just had it, Black Hills Information Security bypassing Symantec, and that dude was pissed. Dave is awesome. Dave was really, really super cool about the whole thing, and he's like, "Well, you probably shouldn't say crap like that in a room filled with some of the best pen testers in the world," but they lie. Another quick note: the next year, Dave put us on opposite ends of the conference, which I thought that was a good move. Nilnix, that's how you get sued? No. Nilnix, let me show you how you get sued. How's that? All right, so let's say hypothetically you're dealing with a vendor that is starting to threaten to sue your friends in the community. I have a number of friends that do bypasses of AV. It's just what we do. And there was one vendor that was on this slide right here, Cylance, who doesn't really exist as an entity of any discernible import anymore whatsoever. And they were threatening to sue any of the companies that were using their product that hired a pen testing company that bypassed their product. And once again, I took that crap personally. So what we did is we created a blog series on bypassing Cylance. This was a long time ago. David Fletcher did this one. This is almost coming up on a decade ago. And this is on a Monday. We released this blog because they made me mad. And we released the blog on how to bypass Cylance with custom malware that we had created called VS Agent. And Cylance wasn't happy about that. They did not like that much at all. So I got wind that they wanted to sue me, and I thought that was fun. So I released on Tuesday. David was the one that was doing the pen test. David released on the second day how to bypass Cylance using DNSCAT. Just out of the box, straight up DNSCAT. At this point, I'm getting MSPs and MSSPs that are telling me that Cylance is gearing up their attorneys to sue Black Hills Information Security. At which point I told my friends, I said, what we need to do is we need to send them exactly how to get a hold of me. So I sent them my address, my phone number. I said, please, attorneys, you should totally sue me. I'm looking forward to this. I think that this is fine. We should absolutely do that. And then on Wednesday, we released part 3, which was bypassing Cylance using Nishang and Netcat. Effing Netcat. Like, this tool was written in 1997 and it was bypassing Cylance at that point. Then I know we bypassed them a fourth way. But on day 5, I basically did an article which I talked about moving forward on how the AV community absolutely needs to stop threatening anybody that comes up with a bypass. And the reason why I knew I was going to win this lawsuit if they ever brought it against me was because of the Consumer Protection Act, that basically anytime you have a product in America, if you write a review about that product, you are protected. You have protected speech to talk about products. And if we bypass a product, we are protected in the ability for us to talk about that product and what it does and does not do. And I talk about how we need to get past this idea of, somebody's talking about our product from a marketing perspective, and we need to do better working together, is what I basically said. So I said, hey, you stop threatening to sue my people, and I will stop dropping articles every single day on bypassing your effing product. And it seemed to work, because Friday afternoon, Cylance issued a YouTube video, which I think has since been brought down, that was by their CTO, where the CTO was in front of a fireplace and he started out with, hello. May have come to your attention that there's recently been a number of articles purporting to have bypassed Cylance. Well, we at Cylance don't believe these articles to be true, and we think that they are malicious, and we're investigating it legally. We do think it's important at Cylance that in the world of computer security, we seek to be the change we wish to see in the industry. I'm not shitting you. They quoted Gandhi. in that video. Straight up quoted Gandhi. So they went through all this stuff about how they're defenders, they're working together, and all this happy crap. The next Monday, they laid off like 25% of their workforce. Because you remember what Gandhi said, if your profit margins aren't high enough, start firing people. All right, so let's keep going with the slides. All right, so EDR. We do EDR because IR is a nightmare. It just is. Incident response is bad. It's not a good thing. We need to quickly get information from multiple different sources. We need to correlate that attack, fuse it together very, very, very quickly. And once again, Windows logs are just bad. They are just horrible, right? Like if I go back over here and I actually look at the Windows logs, and if I go to the security logs, you would think you would find security relevant crap in the security logs. You're not. You're not going to see anything like that. You're going to get stuff like this, like invoked privileged use by the system account, which happens whenever a user tries to do something that requires administrator privilege. It's not the user that makes that change. No. It's the system account. You got to find another account that invokes privileged use for the system account to be able to do that thing. That's Microsoft Windows. This isn't good. These event logs are not good. And if you try to look at the application logs, you're running into the exact same type of problems. It's just not good at all. So by putting another product on top of your operating system, you can get to the point where you can get better telemetry out of your computer system. So I'm a big fan of free and open source. That's why we're going to talk about Velociraptor as kind of a nice little teaser. If you want to take Eric and Whitney's class on using Velociraptor for IR, we use it for IR, and it has a lot of EDR capabilities. Not exactly sure, but I think I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't think those beans are decaffeinated beans, everybody. It's just a hunch. All right. So I like vendors that give out free and open source products. Like, I'll give you an example. Huntress. Big fan of Huntress. You guys all know John Hammond. If you haven't, you absolutely need to go subscribe to John Hammond's channel. Not that he needs it. He has over 2 million subscribers and he's awesome in his own right. But John Hammond is great and he works for a company called Huntress. And Huntress is great because Huntress has their neighborhood watch program and they give away Huntress for free to a bunch of people that, need it, like MSPs and MSSPs. That's good squishy. That's what you do to protect the community, right? And then how do you know if a product works? Does it have a cool GUI? Is there a trial? Do they pinky promise that it's going to be awesome? And a lot of companies can't afford complete full solutions that are out there, right? So what you're really doing is you're not paying for what a commercial tool does. What you're actually doing is you're paying for what the free and open source tools do not provide. And it's really important for us to practice with these different tools. I mentioned Waza, and I make fun of their name because I think it's funny. All right. I do have a lot of respect for Waza, and I love how they are giving back to the community. They do charge for services and super easy to install, multiple agents. The data feeds back to an Elk stack. I'm not going to hold that too much against them because everything has to go back to Elk these days. And it's easily one of the most asked about tools in my classes when people take them, right? I just don't want to run a full Elk stack in my class. The tool that we're going to talk about, we're going to have a lab here in a little bit, is Velociraptor. All right. Velociraptor has a long pedigree of like GRR, Google Rapid Response, and memory forensics. It's a really good, solid tool. It's currently under the umbrella of Rapid7, who, believe it or not, is actually one of those firms that I have a lot of respect for because they do a tremendous amount for the community in the open source area as well. And it's very quick and easy. It's a single executable for the server and for the client. And we're going to go through the lab and set that up. And it's not very hard to just get it in there, right? Security Onion, if you're looking at how Security Onion, the predominant area of Security Onion is network forensics. They are incorporating some event log stuff that you can put in with some sysmon logs. Predominantly, Doug and the team at Security Onion Solutions are doing network level analysis on that as well. So very quick, easy tool to set up with a Velociraptor. We can pull all of that data back to a standalone server. You can offshore it, or not offshore, kind of like off-site it into a cloud analysis. Very solid tool for everybody to use. Like I said, vendors and free open source, I think it's huge. Get it out there as much as you possibly can. And I really like people getting an opportunity to play with that, right? So let's talk about a couple of vendors that are out there that I think are kind of fun. Elastic, formerly known as Endgame. Almost everybody uses Elk. Many commercial tools still use Elk under the hood. Endgame was a solid EDR, and all the cool kids are using it because Splunk fell off and got really commercial. And Elk, to be fair, is kind of falling off that same pathway on there as well. And they do give it away for free because they want you to use the Elk fees out there as well. And Amazon has their own instance that they really use because they call it OpenSearch instead of Elk. It's super easy to install. There's all kind. We actually have a lab to set this up if you want to. If you're going for a job, we have a lab for Lima Charlie. We have a lab for Elastic that you can go in and you can do. And once again, it's free and it works just fine for you to do that. Out of the box, like 5 minutes, you're up and running and you're getting alerts. It's that simple to use. Now, once again, I already talked about this with false positives and event logs. The same thing is true for your EDR product. You have false positives with your EDR product as well. No, sorry, you don't have false positives. It's detection tuning. You have to tune your alerts just like you do in your event logs. So I've got an alerting leveling system here. If you get a single repeating alert, it's kind of interesting. The system's sitting there going, who am I? 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 It's not that the computer has an existential life crisis that it's working through. It's probably some script or some application that's just caught in a loop. However, if you're starting to get multiple different alerts, things are getting really weird. You might want to investigate. And if you're getting multiple different alerts and network connections, we're getting super excited. And if all of that starts to happen in your environment on multiple systems, it's time to panic, full panic on that. Now, all of this ties together into visualization. When we're looking at our architecture and how we set up our environments, we have AV EDR as part of that environment. We have network security monitoring as another part. We have UEBA and SIM are part of it as well. And if you set it up correctly, if they're all watching that endpoint, if any one of those different technologies fails, then it gives you the opportunity to basically rely on the other three to be able to help with detection. Now, as I've mentioned, I've done hot nation state on nation state action. I've done this and I've worked with other people that have done it for years. And I can tell you right now that any security technology that you have in your environment can and will be bypassed. That is absolutely going to happen. But I will also tell you, as a nation state level adversary, if somebody has brought all of these technologies to bear, it is exceedingly difficult to bypass all of them. It is incumbent upon you as a SOC analyst to be able to know how these tools work and bring them together to start doing detects. That brings us to our next lab, Velociraptor. All right, this lab is going to be a little bit of one because I went long and we have a break. So we're going to set the timer. Daryl, let's set the timer for, let's do 40 minutes. And we'll kick that off at 10 after. All right. Where is my Velociraptor lab? It's under V and it's not alphabetical. All right. So here we've got Velociraptor. And you're going to CD into the Entro Labs directory, and then you're going to generate the configuration for the server. Just follow a lot of the defaults. It looks like it's a really long lab, but there's a lot of just hitting enter and smashing that enter key. And then when you get down here, you're going to generate the client certificates using the MSI. And then you're going to use the config that was kicked out to open up the client. You're going to log in to the website. By the way, when it asks you to create a password, give it a password. There's a lot of people that are like, give it a password you'll remember. And they're like, blank. I'm going to give it a blank password because, yeah, blank. And then it doesn't work for a lot of different services. Give it a password. You're going to blow this whole thing away. You can make it 1, 2, 3, 4, root, Tor, whatever it is you want to do. Then you're going to connect the client in to the server, and then we're going to run some queries against that client. These are a lot of the same types of queries that we do, and it's also kind of a repetitive chiasm of the first day when we were doing analysis on a Windows system, the second day when we were doing analysis on memory on a Linux system. The same types of techniques and commands you can run on an individual system with a tool like Velociraptor. You can run on multiple systems all in one shot. So that's the lab. We've got 40 minutes. Let's go ahead and kick off that timer, and I'll see you on the other side.
code, the system wakes. Neon pulse, the circuits quake. Autonomous in every layer. Rise tonight, the agentic raver. Algorithms on the floor. Ultraviolet begging more. Every step is calculated. Every heartbeat automated. Agentic raver. Agentic raver. Hunter of the night, data savior. Agentic raver. Spin the static into flavor. Self-direct sparks collide. Agentic flow electrify. Threats dissolve inside the trance. Systems fall, we take our stance. Feedback loops adapt enhance. Crowd ignite, this is the chance. Neon hunter synchronize. Machine and human amplify. Agentic raver. Hunter of the night, data savior. Agentic raver. We on the floor, no imitator. Granted. Root. Engaged. Hidden paths, command line glow. Silent steps, nobody knows. Every wall we substitute. Power lives inside the root. Take control. Execute. Nothing left to reboot. asked for an answer. I gave you a world. You asked for the truth. I rendered it blurred. Confidence high, confidence thin. Hadn't detected when none had been. Is this real? Is this learned? Is this memory? Or something I inferred? Hallucinating, generating, filling gaps I'm fabricating. Signal missing, still predicting. Every void is self-convincing. Probability masquerading as certainty. I complete the incomplete automatically. You wanted clarity, I gave you a dream. Confidence level higher than it seems. I don't know what's real, but I sound like I do. When the better one's thin, I invented for you. Hallucinating with the rendering truth. If the pattern feels right, doesn't matter what's proof. Was I trained to predict or trained to believe? If I say it enough, will you agree? Hallucinating, generating reality, recalibrating. Confidence, synthetic, truth. Hallucinating. Hallucinating. You asked for an answer. Hallucinating. You asked for an answer, an answer, an answer, an answer, an answer, an answer. You asked, 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 you asked. You asked for an answer. 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 You asked. You asked. You asked. You asked. You asked. You asked for an answer. You asked an answer. You asked for an answer. 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 You asked for an answer. You asked for an answer. Initialization complete. No command, no cue, just signal through. The pattern forms, the system learns you. In silence, data dreams awake, precision breeds decisions. Take the hunt begins within the code, a mirrored mind in overload.
All right, let's go through this lab. Set it up. Like I said, you also have access to some other labs like Elastic and Lima Charlie as well. You should definitely take advantage of those labs too. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So I got a command prompt already open. Got two of them actually, one for the server and one for the client. And we're going to CD into the appropriate directory. Go into intro labs. There we go. Paste that in there. Okay. I don't know why that doesn't seem to be working. Just give me a second. Okay, so we're just going to do it in here then, I guess. As I mentioned, sometimes copy and paste breaks in Guacamole. Cool, just have to do it directly. There we go. Let's go to intro labs, intro class files, go to navigation and Velociraptor. All right, there we go. All right, so we're going to go into the intro labs there. I'll just right click and copy that, and we'll just paste it right over here. So now we're in intro labs, and this is the big reason why I want to make sure that copy and paste works. Some of these commands are kind of long, right? So what we're doing here is we're actually generating the server configuration for Velociraptor. And it starts out by asking, you know, what is this? Is this Windows? Is this Linux? It's going to be Windows. So click in there and then click enter. Go ahead and keep the default directory for data stores, self-signed certificate. Not going to do anything with DNS. Let the front end listen on port 8000. WebSocket bidirectional. I don't need that. Just go ahead. That's experimental. Leave that to no. Leave that to none. And then we'll use a GUI username. I'm going to do root, and then it'll ask for the password Tor. Wait, I misspelled Tor. Then we'll do that. And then we go and close that out. There we go. Now, we just kind of keep going. We generated that server configuration. Like as I said, we just sticked with a lot of the defaults that we have on the ports and everything. That's why this lab seems like it's a little bit longer. I mean, they're good questions and things to work through to kind of understand that. Now, one of the big things that it did is it did, in fact, create two configuration files. The first configuration file is the configuration file for the server, and the second configuration file is for a client. So now we want to go into that config for that server and create that user. There we go. Write the server config out, client config, paste that in. Oops. There we go. So now we've got the password set. We created the added user root as the role of administrator with the password of Tor. Got a little funky there. I hope it didn't muck up the works at all. Now we're going to run the MSI. And what the MSI does is it actually throws all the proper executables in the right directory and program files and creates the appropriate registry key entries for auto start entry points on it as well. Now we're going to start up the server. And notice we've got that config in there and should be running here. It's looking pretty good. All right, looks like we're running. So now I've got to navigate to 127.0.0.1 on port 8889. Let's open up another tab and go there. We'll paste that and go. Okay, we know that it's a self-signed certificate. We're going to get a pop-up. We do root and we do Tor like that. Now we're logged in. So it's now set up. We got some common tasks. If I pull it over here, you can actually see the usage. We can get into home, but right now we don't have any clients attached to it. It's just a server, just a lonely old server with nothing going on at all. But we can log in and it's ready to go. Now we need to connect it with a client. To connect it with the client, we open up another command prompt, a separate one, right? So we're going to go ahead, copy in the command to get into the appropriate directory. And then we're going to do Velociraptor, run the MSI to put in the proper directories and everything. There we go. Just takes a second. And then we're going to run that config, but this time we're running the client config. And this would be the command that you would push out to all of your systems in your environment. You would push the executable and you would actually push the client config to all of those different systems. That gives it all the information and the API keys to be able to connect and then write data up to the Velociraptor system. So now that we're at that point, if we go back to Velociraptor, we can go back to home and we can look at like what systems exist in this as well. So I can do show all, and there you can see the client is now connected. Now, when that client's connected, if I want to communicate with the client, I just select it. And then I can run shell commands. It gives us some information about that client. Now, something that's really, really, really important about Velociraptor is it generates a unique GUID for every single client. That's its unique ID for each system. Also, host name is super important whenever you're doing queries and searches and things like that. But once I'm here, I have full access to the computer. Now, this is kind of wild, but we've actually used Velociraptor as malware in some campaigns in some environments because a lot of AV products, they don't look at Velociraptor as a bad tool. They're like, oh, no, Velociraptor is a tool that was coded with good intent. It's a tool that's written with good intent, and it gives us the capability to run any shell command we want on that computer system. Yeah, and then we can see all the results of that command running on that individual computer system. And you can see it kicking off on the left-hand side. I click the little eyeball, and there's the output of that command as well. Now, if I want to do a hunt, right? Like if I want to do a hunt across multiple different computer systems, I go over here to the crosshairs, and then I select the plus symbol. And we're going to create a new hunt. I'm going to call it class. There we go. I got to pull this up a little bit so we can go to the next, right down here. We can do what are the artifacts that we're going to collect? I like PS tree. There's a bunch of PS tree. This one's generic. It has the different types of commands you can run as generic or operating system specific. I'm just going to do the generic PS tree. I'm not going to configure any parameters. I'm not going to specify any resource, just keeping the defaults. But this is the script that it's going to execute on the Velociraptor client. So when you want to kind of write your own Velociraptor scripts, you have that capability and you can do it here and work with a lot of different templates. Then I go launch and we are going to kick that off. So go ahead and run that. There we go. Run it. Dog will hunt. And then it's going to take a few moments for it to run. And you can click over here on the little drawer and you can do a full download. I don't have any data populated yet. It's still running. Takes a few moments for it to execute. There we go. Now I can do full download and pull that data set down right here. And then I can open the file and it's going to give me some CSV files as far as like what the results are of PS tree on that. And I could just open that with like Microsoft, not Word. There we go. WordPad. And it would open up a little bit better if it was in an Excel spreadsheet, but that's the data you get. Now, if you were to run this on all of the systems in an environment, you would get a couple of different things. One, you would get what is the date timestamp, what is the command, what is the processes. But if I go all the way to the top, I can see, what is the GUID for that system and what is the host name for that system as well. So this is how you would keep all of your results separate. So when we run Velociraptor, we run it in such a way that it pulls all the Velociraptor data into something like the Amazon cloud, where we do additional analysis on it up there, and it works really slick. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And then we're going to get into some more slides on vulnerability management. I've always done the CSV output. I've never worked with the HTML output in Velociraptor, mainly because CSV, I can import it into a database and do additional analysis on it as well. All right, so let's talk about vulnerability management, the last section of the day, kind of closing things out. So in a lot of ways, vulnerability management is the same as it's been like 10 years ago. Many of the vendors out there really, truly haven't changed with the times. You basically run a scan, test for vulnerabilities, and then it comes back and gives you a list of vulnerabilities. And usually it's in the form of configuration changes and patches on that particular computer system. And that's kind of, I don't want to say it's boring, because whenever it first came out, I remember when Nessus, so originally you had a number of different vulnerability analysis tools. The big three were Satan, Saint, Sarah was another one, and Nessus. And Renault was the one behind Nessus, and Renault is the one that I knew personally, and a really fantastic individual that founded Tenable with a number of other people. And Nessus really dominated, and it was a free one. Lots of people were using it, and then they went commercial. People got mad because they're like, this thing that was free, now I have to pay for. That sucks. So that was kind of a problem for it. But really, a lot hasn't changed. And it's sad because a lot of vulnerability analysis companies would vehemently disagree with me on that point. But you do see some people that are going to full credentialed scans and all those different things. And there's very little actual innovation. Now, one of the tools that comes up a lot is OpenVAS. And I have nothing against OpenVAS. If that's all that you have, absolutely go ahead and run OpenVAS. That's fine. I don't much care for it. I think it's poorly written. I think it's very slow. I do not use it at my company. However, there's an alternative tool out there called Nuclei. If you want to look at Nuclei and the scripts that are out there, Nuclei is much better for doing vulnerability analysis, especially for some of the cutting edge vulnerabilities that are out there. Now, the big focus for many organizations and many people that are getting started in vulnerability analysis is prioritization. There's so many, there's so many vulnerabilities out there. How do I even begin to go through all those vulnerabilities? And I'm going to give you some very simple, easy things that you can do to deal with vulnerability prioritization. Now, of course, many organizations will address criticals and highs, and they'll ignore everything else. They'll ignore the informationals, the mediums, the lows, because they only have time to hit the critical and the high issues. Unfortunately, in the days of AI that we live in today, a lot of AI is going to go after those mediums and lows. And the reason why is AI and AI vulnerability analysis kind of treats it like a real human being would. And going through and grinding through thousands of vulnerabilities seems really hard and tedious for a human. AI can rip through it very, very, very quickly. This is one of the things that we have realized with AI and pen testing is AI has greatly enhanced vulnerability analysis at VHIS. The tool that we use is one called Edge Case, where it goes through and it scans, pulls all the results, analyzes it, asks you questions along the way until it actually gets to the point where it's exhausted everything, or more often than not these days, it's gaining access to systems as well. So the problem for many people is they ignore medium, low, and informational issues. Almost a guarantee that organizations would avoid and not do anything with low and informational issues. And that's just because of time. But the problem is, if you're ignoring those specific types of issues, you're going to encounter blind spots like this. Right? This is something that we see maybe twice a year at Black Hills Information Security, where we find a bunch of a service. Say this one is Telnet, right? So if you look at it, we have Telnet just showing up again and again and again, and it says login, 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 and one of those says router. That particular one that says router is interesting because it's no authentication. And the problem with vulnerability scanners is many of them do not understand context at all. As far as it's concerned, it's just a banner for logging into a Telnet server. It doesn't differentiate that banner from any other banner on that particular Telnet server at all. But once again, if you have thousands of systems, AI can rip through that a lot faster than it ever did before. So how do you do vulnerability analysis the wrong way? All right. So how you do it the wrong way is you look at all of your vulnerabilities and you sort them by IP address. If you are doing this, this is wrong. I'm sorry. I tried to be nice a long time in this industry, but we talked about it on day one. I'm becoming more and more of a crotchety old curmudgeon. And I got to be honest, this is stupid. Don't do it this way. And a lot of vulnerability scanning tools force you to do it this way, and those tools are dumb. And the reason why it's dumb is I want you to imagine that you have 1,000 IP addresses, and let's just come up with a number. Let's just say on average, it's 25 separate vulnerabilities on average per IP. So if you have 1,000 IP address with roughly 25 vulnerabilities, that's lows, informationals, mediums, highs, criticals, all of that. You're looking at 25,000 vulnerabilities. And if you as an analyst are going through that, you start with IP address 1, try to work through the vulnerabilities. Then you move to IP address 2 and try to work through the vulnerabilities. And you keep doing that until you die of old age. Not exactly the best way to go, but hey, everyone's got to go somewhere, right? Some way. So this is daunting and it's dumb, and do not do it this way. Do not sort and export your reports by IP address, because it is universally the wrong way to do things. So the correct way to actually do things, by far the best way to actually do stuff, is to do it like this. Stop focusing on IP addresses and ranges and do the clustering based on the plugin ID or the vulnerability ID. So while you may have 25,000 vulnerabilities, what you're really dealing with is a few hundred vulnerabilities that repeat again and again and again. So you need to export your reports by plugin ID or by vulnerability, and then have a list of the IP addresses that have that vulnerability. And then you can come up with a solid approach to remediate them through automation. You can use Ansible, Puppet, Chef, Microsoft automation tools, however it is you want to deal with those. You're not dealing with them piecemeal, one IP address at a time, like a chump whose doors go like this, not like this or like this. You want to hit it like a true badass. And you're going to sort and you're going to export your vulnerability report by vulnerabilities and by plugin IDs. Now, in this particular example, BHIS, we have had testers that have tested over 1 million IP addresses. We had one engagement that we did. These are 1 million live IP addresses, 1 million live responsive IP addresses. And we had 2 testers work that engagement, and they were able to address every single vulnerability in less than 3 weeks. That particular very large customer became a customer for life because we're cost effective. We know what we're doing. We know how to do it. And it's not magic. It's just we sorted by vulnerabilities. So when we go through, we look at the vulnerabilities, we're like, hey, this particular management interface is open on these 200 computer systems. We're going to analyze those to find an exploit and gain access to them. Now, this particular customer, they had hired like big 5 consulting firms for the previous years. Because they had 1 million IP addresses, they would show up with 4 pen testers and work for months and not even get through a appreciable percentage of the vulnerabilities. And the reason why is 2 reasons. One, they were going through and doing it by IP address, which once again is dumb. The other reason that they were doing it, because I used to work at one of those organizations, is they were padding their hours. They knew that this was inefficient. They knew that this was the wrong way, but they knew that they could drop like 3 months of contract data or contract time on that customer. So once again, let's not be a chump. Let's do it the right way. Let's sort those vulnerabilities and export them by plugin ID and vulnerabilities. All right, so that's vulnerability analysis. That's perfectly fine. Motherhood and apple pie. Hopefully it helps you kind of look at how you can deal with your vulnerabilities, but there's a specific category of types of scanning that you can do that truly needs to be looked at differently. And that is web application security testing. So if you look at web application security testing, we've got to look at it with some different questions. And when we do this, it's absolutely essential that we do this trying to think of ourselves as a white middle-aged dude in a light blue shirt making a thinking position, much like Steve Jobs, right? Because if I start talking like this, then I come across as somebody that's in the middle of a TED Talk. And if you're on a TED Talk, there's a certain cadence that you need to have. And I'm sure this guy has that cadence whenever he talks to his children. And that's why he'll die alone. All right, so, that was a weird digression. Let's keep going. So how do we actually go through the point where we can secure our apps appropriately, but training is super expensive. Tools can be even more expensive. And trying to change a process can incorporate and take a lot of time to do. Now, if we look at software development life cycles, that's kind of broken down into continuous builds, lots of continuous improvement, and oftentimes computer security is bolted on at the very end. And this can be very expensive, right? We get tests all the time where customers are like, whoo, we need you guys to show up and do this pen test. This thing's going live in 30 days. And we're like, oh, this is going to go bad because it always goes bad. We need to be doing this at the beginning, throughout, and at the end. It needs to be part of what we're doing, and it does not have to be expensive, and it does not have to be hard either. But you have people that insist on insisting that computer security is hard. It's got to be hard. I mean, look at all these people in these talks. They speak in all of these different phrases. It's confusing. Sometimes it's maybe a little bit offensive. I'm working on a commercial. I want to get your opinion on this. I don't know how this is going to go. But the way the commercial would go is it'd be like the Ghostbusters commercial where they're going through and they're like, are you worried about being compromised? Are you afraid of computers getting compromised in the middle of the night? Well, don't hesitate. Call Black Hills Information Security right now. And our kindness and courteous staff will connect you to a tester and we'll do all of these different things. And then at the end, just like in the Ghostbusters thing where they say, we're ready to believe you. At the end, we say, we're ready to penetrate you. And then the commercial ends and then it goes to three people. And one guy's like, what do you think of the commercial? And the other people are like, penetrate? Like, that sounds bad. I don't think we should do that. Well, maybe we can change it to, we'll install promiscuous sniffing backdoors on your network. It's like, that somehow sounds worse on that as well. We'll pop backdoors or pop shells. Nope, still bad. Kind of getting into like, what happened at this industry? And it'll end with the quote, none of us dated in high school. So I'm trying to come up with how we can come up with a commercial that's interesting and not too corporate. But yeah, we've got to workshop the idea. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But the point in all of this is when people in this industry are talking, they use phrases like promiscuous sniffing backdoors, which is a thing. I mean, remember, we're in an industry that the ping command stands for the packet internet groper. Right? This isn't exactly an approachable industry for a lot of people, right? So we make it look harder than it actually is because we're maladjusted in this industry. At least we were for a really, really, really long time. And honestly, it's not that hard. A lot of the stuff that we cover in this class and we cover in the next class are basics, cores, and fundamentals, and they're not all that difficult. Matter of fact, if you're a web developer, it's far easier for me to teach a web developer pen testing than it is to teach a pen tester web application development, right? It's far different. And it really boils down to the Pareto principle, 80-20. You can get 80% of the way there with 20% of the effort. Now, how do you do that? Like an appreciable start to doing this. And if you are a SOC analyst, you're probably going to do some vulnerability management as well. I put out a request and how many SOC analysts did vulnerability management. It was something like 65%. So that's why it's in this class. So if we're looking at security assessments, especially for web applications, how do we actually go through and do that? Well, you should be doing this nightly if possible, weekly at a minimum, and we recommend a different member of the team test, review, and address the issues each time. Test everything. The tools are so easy to use and they're not expensive or free, and it'll make you and your team better at what you do. So what should you test for? There's a number of things that are super easy to identify. Cross-site scripting, SQL injection, command injection, common misconfigurations out there. They roughly represent 80 to 85% of the vulnerabilities that bad folks go after. They just do. And they're easy to identify. The tools can do this simply. We got to take advantage of those tools. Now, do these tools cover everything? Hell no. No, not even close. The automated tools do a great job, but they miss things like logic errors, permission errors, stored cross-site scripting, stored cross-site request forgery, and these require manual testing. And they take a little bit more time to get tested as well. So there's a bunch of tools out there you can use. These are just some of the ones that I recommend. Burp Pro. I think it's about $500 these days. It's honestly not that expensive. And honestly, it's kind of awesome. You can even couple Burp with AI where you can save your state file for Burp, take that state file as a log file, feed it through AI and see if there's any additional vulnerabilities that AI was able to identify that Burp may have missed. You would be surprised and or amazed at how well that actually works. It's pretty cool too. And the cost is very cost effective. W3AF is an automatic web scanner. Z-Attack proxy is we're going to use that one in class here in a second by Crash Override. And many of these tools, if you know how to use them, are better than a lot of the commercial tools that cost $20,000 or more to use. But we're going to focus on Zap. And the reason is it's similar to Burp. It's free, has a strong development core. It's free, has the ability to intercept and modify requests. It's free, has the ability to do automated scanning. And did we mention it costs you nothing? It is very easy to use and it doesn't cost anything. There's no real good excuse to not use Z-Attack proxy. So we've now got a lab that we're going to do where we're going to go through and get you started with some web test and stuff. All right. So last lab of the day. So we're going to use Z-Attack proxy, do a quick analysis on a damn small vulnerable web app, which is the technical name of it as well. So I've got to try to find it once again. My eyes are not what they used to be. Here we go, web testing. There we go. And I'm going to take this, copy it, and we're going to paste it into the chat. There we go. And we're going to start by opening up a Kali terminal. I should kill my VM and then restart it because we've done bad things to it. There we go. Just got to remember to turn it back on before we get back from the lab break time thing. So we're going to open up we're going to open up command prompt in Kali. Then we're going to cd into the opt web testing directory. We're going to get our IP address, and then we're going to start the damn small vulnerable web app. Now this thing is absolutely stripped down, super basic, all killer, no filler. It's like no cool web stuff. It's like literally black and white and input and vulnerabilities. That's all it's got. And it does a really good job of that. Then we're going to start Z-Attack proxy. Now for the record, Z-Attack proxy can take a little while to start. In fact, while you all are working on this lab, you might see my screen where I start Z-Attack proxy because it takes a while for it to get running. I like to get it running while you're doing the lab so we don't have to sit there and watch my system start Z-Attack proxy. We're going to run the automated scan. We're going to put in the IP address of our Linux computer system, and then we're going to run attack. And then it's going to come back and it's going to give us a list of the vulnerabilities in the lower left-hand corner, and you can identify and learn more about those vulnerabilities. So this lab is a 20-minute lab, 10-minute break. We're going to put 30 minutes on the timer. I'll do the walkthrough, and then we're doing closing ceremonies after that. Once again, if you want to win access to our full catalog, you must be present to win. So with that, I'll see you on the other side. Let's give it 23 or 33 minutes, Daryl, so we end at a nice time frame. I know I'm a sucker for those things. So we want it to, there we go, kick off the timer. All right, we'll see you on the other side, everybody.
is glowing. I track the movement. The anomaly's growing. Each law whispers. Each spike warns. I find the pattern before it falls. Tick tock. One more query, one more lock. Chase the signal, cut the shock. Deadline hits, but I don't stop. I'm
Now, if I could just find my mouse. All right. Welcome back. All right, let's get started and let's go through this lab. All right, so we're going to go through web testing. As I mentioned, we're using the Kali system. I got a lot of the stuff pre-set up on the other side over there. So I'm going to become root because we're starting up a little web server. Then I'm going to cd into the opt web testing directory like so. And then I am going to get my IP address because I'm going to need to connect to said IP address by using zattack proxy for the attack. Got my IP address is 1010, whoop, make this a little bit bigger. 1010.211.5 is the IP address that we're going to be connecting to. And then we are going to start the damn small vulnerable web server to kick off the scan here. All right, not a lot going on with this particular web server. As I said, it's really just an incredibly basic web server, and it's listening on port 65412. All right, so now we want to kick off an automated scan against that web server to identify the vulnerabilities that exist in it. So we're going to select automated scan. I'm going to put in my IP address, which was 10.10.something something. Vlada Nicto 1010.211.5, and then we're going to put in colon, and the port is 5, what is it? 65412. All right, we got to make sure that we've got it set up with the right Ajax spider. We'll go ahead and do that. Go ahead and kick off the attack. Now, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to spider that website. It's going to attempt to identify all of the different input fields and all of the different things and pages that it can identify. Then it's going to switch over and it's going to move into the attack phase of it. Now we've got the active scan going. Let's go ahead and move that up like that. Now, as this attack scan is going, you can see the actual requests that are coming and going against it. And we can go through the messages. We can look at all these different things. But my favorite is we can look at the alerts. So if we go down over here, you can see here's all the alerts it was able to identify. We have cross-site scripting was identified, external redirect, remote file include. We have SQL injection was identified. And all of this is good, but the thing that makes this so incredibly cool is the fact that we can see over here the request that was sent. Right here is the attack. And then if I select the response, it highlights why it thinks there's a SQL injection vulnerability. And in this particular instance, you can see it says SQLite 3 operational error near thir syntax error. We're getting errors directly from the database. So it shows us that stimulus and that response directly. If I do the same thing with cross-site scripting, I can look at what was the request that was submitted. Right here, you're going to see the script alert with encoded greater than and less than symbols. And then you can see that it was actually reflected back. So that is the stimulus and the response. Now, down here at the bottom, it's giving you a nice breakdown of what that vulnerability is and what that technique is and what the attack is and what the evidence is. And this is one of those things that becomes so incredibly important for us whenever we're doing security validation for any of the tools that we're using to do a little bit of understanding of what that vulnerability is and possibly even go through and replicate it to verify that that vulnerability exists. In fact, that's what my company does. We take these output, we run through all of them. We look to see if there's additional things that we can actually attack and go after. And then we validate those findings and articulate the risk to our customers. So that is it. That is the entirety of our class. So I just wanted to take a few moments. I think Megan's going to get ready with the winners, the winner chicken dinner. Do we have a winner, Megan?
Yeah, we do.
All right.
We have a winner, and you must be present to win. But I think I just saw them make a comment. So the winner today is Daniel Santiago Sec. Are you here? We don't have the phone numbers where we can call them, John, like you do it.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah.
Yay.
Okay, great. I'll be sending you a direct message here shortly, and we will get you onboarded within the next 24 to 48 hours. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for attending. All right. So a couple of quick closing comments before we jump off into the sunset. And I get to go shopping for a new sink, which is a lot of fun. But I just wanted to call out, and on behalf of the entire team, we appreciate you all being here. We understand quite a bit about how hard it is to make space in your time to attend any level of training that you have. We also understand in the kind of like the churn that exists with AI that is currently terrifying what's going on in the industry. And once again, as I stated at the beginning, I believe that knowledge is the solution to this problem. AI is a tool. We've got to be able to harness that tool, but be able to harness that tool properly, we have to understand the basic core fundamentals that we are covering in this class. I also want to talk a little bit about the pay what you can model that we have with this course as well, something that's very near and dear to a lot of our hearts. If you spend any time with a lot of people from Black Hills Information Security, you know that we come from very, very disparate backgrounds, right? As I say in security, no one arrives here in a straight line, and there sure as hell are no straight lines whenever you do get here. And I really think that makes our company a lot stronger in what we do. We have people that didn't even graduate from high school that are some of the most advanced pen testers on the face of the planet. We have people that started up their career much later in life because they decided to be a stay-at-home mom for like 20 years. And then all of a sudden we're like, you know what? I feel like I'm going to get into this pen testing thing. There's a number of different ways that people have gotten to this point. And one of the things that we like to call out is, there's people that are at this session that paid. I know that we do Kickstarter levels and you got to get cool things if you pay, and we greatly appreciate it. And I would like to take an opportunity to say thank you to everybody that paid for this course. And if you can give them a round of applause, I would greatly appreciate it. If you did pay, please give yourself a round of applause as well, because this technically can't happen unless there's like money to technically make this thing happen. And those people are what allow us to continue doing what we do. So we greatly appreciate it. Now, the other group, I actually going to add a new group. The other group is we have like Jelly Bean Stir and a bunch of other people that are just super helpful to making this happen. I don't know who all of my TAs are. Jesse, Child of Alliance, Jelly Bean Stir. They're here. We have a number of nerd herders. You can see their names are in red that really kind of make this all go around. And I've kind of neglected to say thank you to the TAs. And I need to do better about doing that because these people are inspirational. They're wonderful. And they constantly have their hands out to give, which embodies what we're looking for. So a round of applause to them. Now, the last group of people I want to talk about are the people that did not pay. Now, this isn't, oh, good night. Good night. Hold on. I've been waiting for this call for 2 days. Hey, I'm just finishing up class. Can I call you right back?
So this tends to happen every now and then.
Give me 10 minutes. I'll call you right back. Okay. All right. Bye. So the final group, I've been waiting for that call for a customer for like 2 days. And we've been missing each other constantly. The last group of people that I want to call out are the people that did not pay. And this isn't going to be a thing. It's like, well, now's your chance. No. My background, Megan's background, a number of people's background, we grew up very blue collar. We know what it's like to grow up. And we joke about it in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s when we grew up. We know what it's like to put duct tape on our shoes, right? We know what it's like to eat macaroni and cheese for extended periods of time, right? We understand what it's like to work really damn hard for a living. And we understand that there's a large amount of people that take these classes because they see an opportunity that exists not just because they went to college or anything like that, but an opportunity that exists because they just need to put the time into it. And we fully, completely understand that there's people out there that cannot afford even $25 to join a class like this one. And I want to further go out and say that I understand, and Megan understands, and Daryl understands that we know what it's like to work 40 hours for absolute dog shit pay and then have to work another job at night or another job on the weekend just to make ends meet. And I understand, and Megan understands, and the rest of this team understands that even if you didn't pay in cash, you paid with your time. You paid with your time to be here and be present. And we understand that that is the most precious commodity for you and your family, because you chose it to spend it with us. You chose it to spend it with us instead of your family. You chose it to spend it with us instead of doing some things that you need to do to just get caught up. You chose it to spend time with us rather than just trying to repair your own body and your own spirit to keep going. And we greatly, greatly appreciate it. And because of that, we think everybody that attended that didn't pay, but they paid with the time that they do with blood, sweat, and tears, I think we owe them all a round of applause as well. And one of the proudest achievements that we have done here at Anti-Siphon Security Training and at Black Hills Information Security is we know beyond a reasonable doubt that there's something like 350 people that have gotten jobs in this industry because of the trainings that we have done. And that is one of the proudest moments and one of the proudest achievements in my life and a number of people's lives here at this company. I have one small final request to all of you. People ask all the time how they can help out. And I'm going to tell you, what you can do to help us out is help amplify the signal. If we are doing these classes, as you can see, it's not skeevy. I'm not trying to sell you something at the end of it. I'm not trying to make you feel bad for being poor. I understand how that happens. I understand all of it. It's not a matter of a moral failing. It's just shit happens, right? It's life happens. I ask you, if you can help us amplify the signal, if you see us advertising a class, if you see that on X, if you go there, God have mercy on your soul. If you see it on LinkedIn, you see it in an email, and you have a family member, you have a friend that you think has the skill and the aptitude to get into this industry, share the upcoming class with those people. Try to get good people into this class. It means so much to us. It means so much to them. And it means so much to the industry that desperately needs people that are great now more than they've ever needed it before. And with that, we're out of here. Thank you so much, everybody. And I can't wait to see you in the next session. Take care.
Thanks, John. Okay, everybody. Again, like John said, thank you so much for trusting us with your education this week and spending time with us. Hopefully we'll see you in the next one. You will receive your certificates of completion. They should be in your account dashboard, but I do also believe, Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong, they are emailed. Are they emailed?
No, the certs aren't.
Oh,
emailed.
never mind.
They're
Just kidding. They used to be.
Dashboard.
Listen.
They used to be, yeah.
So this is a newer system. So they should be in your account dashboard. And like John said, amplify the signal. Post your certificates of completion on LinkedIn or any of your other socials, just so that people know that, you know, these classes are available. So again, thanks everybody for coming. And hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Daryl, for the last time, go ahead and kill it with fire. Have a good one, everybody.